Hey everyone, before we dive into this wild corporate tale, please hit that subscribe button to join our storytelling community. Your support keeps these gripping narratives coming. I sat at my desk, the hum of the office filling the air, when I overheard my boss, Karen, on a heated call. She was known for her sharp tongue and ruthless decisions, but today felt different. Her voice dripped with disdain as she spoke about loyalty, or the lack of it. I glanced at Tom, her assistant, quietly organizing files nearby. He was the backbone of our department, always staying late, fixing messes. Karen didn't see it. She never did. She only saw numbers, not people. I wondered what had set her off this time. Tom, oblivious, kept working, his calm demeanor unshaken. The tension in the air was palpable, though. Something big was brewing, and I could feel it. I pretended to focus on my spreadsheets, but my ears were locked on her. Karen's words grew sharper, her tone more venomous. She mentioned cutting dead weight with a sneer. I couldn't help but wonder who was in her crosshairs. This wasn't just another day at the office. Karen stormed out of her office, her heels clicking like a metronome of doom. She called Tom into her office with a curt wave. I watched him walk in, his face neutral, as always. The door shut, but the glass walls let me see the scene unfold. Karen's arms were crossed, her posture rigid. Tom stood calmly, hands clasped, listening intently. I couldn't hear the words, but her gestures screamed trouble. She pointed at papers, then at him, her face twisted in frustration. Tom nodded slowly, unfazed, which seemed to enrage her more. I felt a knot in my stomach. This wasn't good. Colleagues nearby exchanged glances, sensing the storm. Karen's voice rose, slipping through the glass, mentioning performance issues. I couldn't believe it. Tom, of all people? He'd been here longer than most, always reliable. The office felt colder, like the air itself held its breath. I remembered when I started here, Tom was the one who showed me the ropes. He'd stay late to help me with reports, never complaining. Karen, on the other hand, barely acknowledged him unless something went wrong. She'd built her reputation on being decisive, but it often felt cruel. Now, she was tearing into him, oblivious to his value. I saw Tom's lips move, his voice too soft to carry. Karen's face reddened. She wasn't used to pushback. I wondered what he'd said to make her so mad. The office was quieter now, everyone pretending to work but watching. I felt like I was witnessing a car crash in slow motion. Tom's calm demeanor was unnerving, almost too steady. Karen slammed a folder on her desk, her voice now audible. "You're not indispensable," she snapped. My heart sank. Was she really going to fire him? The meeting stretched on, Karen's tirade relentless. I caught fragments of her words, inflexible, outdated, replaceable. Each one hit like a punch. Tom stood there, taking it, his expression unreadable. I wondered why he didn't fight back harder. He knew this company better than anyone, even her. I glanced at my screen, unable to focus, my mind racing. Karen had no idea how much Tom did behind the scenes. He fixed her mistakes, smoothed over client issues, all without fanfare. I remembered him staying late to redo a presentation she'd botched. Now, she was calling him dead weight? It was infuriating. The office clock ticked louder, or maybe it was my pulse. I wanted to barge in, to defend him, but I stayed glued to my chair. Tom's silence was almost defiant, like he knew something she didn't. Finally, the door opened, and Tom walked out, his face still calm. Karen followed, her expression smug, like she'd won a battle. "You're done here," she said loudly, for everyone to hear. Gasps rippled through the office. Tom didn't flinch. He just nodded and returned to his desk. I watched, stunned, as he started packing his things. Karen went back to her office, slamming the door. The office buzzed with whispers, but Tom ignored them. He moved methodically, stacking papers, clearing his desk. I wanted to say something, anything, but words failed me. How could she do this? Tom was the glue holding this place together. I noticed his hands, steady, no trace of anger. It was eerie, like he'd expected this. Then I remembered a rumor I'd heard months ago. Someone had mentioned Tom owned company shares, significant ones. I dismissed it as office gossip, but now it nagged at me. Could it be true? If so, why hadn't he said anything? I watched him pack, my mind spinning with questions. Karen was oblivious, already on another call, laughing like nothing happened. The contrast was sickening. Tom's loyalty had been unwavering, yet here he was, cast aside. I wondered if he'd known this was coming. His calm wasn't just professionalism, it felt like confidence. I leaned back, trying to process it all. The office felt like a stage, and we were all players in a drama Karen didn't understand. Tom caught my eye and gave a small nod, almost reassuring. What was he planning? I couldn't shake the feeling he was holding an ace. By noon, Tom's desk was nearly empty, just a few personal items left. Colleagues whispered, some approaching him to offer condolences. He thanked them quietly, never showing distress. I couldn't stand it anymore and walked over. Tom, this is insane, I said, keeping my voice low. He smiled faintly, shrugging. It's just business, he said, but his eyes gleamed with something else. I wanted to press him, to ask about the shares, but it felt intrusive. Instead, I asked if he was okay. He nodded, saying, "Things have a way of working out." His cryptic tone sent a chill down my spine. Karen emerged again, barking orders at someone else, oblivious to Tom. I returned to my desk, my mind racing. Something big was coming, I could feel it. The afternoon dragged on, the office tense with unspoken questions. Tom finished packing and left without a word. Karen didn't even look up as he walked out. I felt a mix of anger and admiration for his composure. How could he stay so calm? I kept thinking about those shares. If true, he wasn't just an employee, he was a stakeholder. Karen's arrogance might have just cost her dearly. I overheard a colleague mention a board meeting tomorrow. My heart skipped. Was Tom connected to it? I tried to focus on work, but my mind was elsewhere. The office felt emptier without Tom, like a machine missing a vital cog. Karen's smugness grated on me more than ever. I wondered how she'd react when the truth came out. If there was truth to uncover. That night, I couldn't sleep, replaying the day's events. Tom's calm, Karen's cruelty, the whispers about shares, it all swirled in my head. I checked my phone, scrolling through old emails, looking for clues. I found one from months ago, a vague mention of silent investors. Was Tom one of them? I didn't know enough about corporate structures to be sure, but the idea that he held power Karen didn't see thrilled me. I imagined her face when she learned the truth. Would she backtrack, grovel, or double down? Knowing her, probably the latter. I fell asleep wondering what Tom was doing now. Was he plotting, or just moving on? The next day promised answers, and I couldn't wait to see it unfold. The next morning, the office was abuzz with rumors. Word had spread about Tom's exit, and theories flew. Some said he'd sue, others mentioned the shares. I kept quiet, watching Karen strut around, oblivious. The board meeting was at 2 p.m., and tension hung in the air. I wondered if Tom would show up, or if he'd sent a proxy. Karen was in high spirits, joking with her favorites. It made my blood boil. How could she be so blind? I checked the clock every 5 minutes, my nerves fraying. By 1:30, the office was practically vibrating with anticipation. I saw a few execs arrive, their faces serious. Something was definitely up. I braced myself for whatever came next, hoping Tom had a plan. The board meeting started, and Karen was called in. She walked in confidently, unaware of the storm brewing. I stayed at my desk, pretending to work, but my ears were glued to the murmurs around me. Colleagues speculated wildly, some mentioning Tom's name. I kept my head down, my heart pounding. Minutes ticked by, then an hour. The office grew quieter, everyone waiting for news. I wondered what was happening behind those closed doors. Was Tom there, revealing his stake? Or was this just another routine meeting? I couldn't focus, my mind painting scenarios. Karen's voice had been so smug yesterday. Would it crack today? I checked my phone, hoping for a clue, but nothing. The waiting was torture, but I sensed a shift coming. Around 3 p.m., the boardroom door opened, and Karen emerged, her face pale. She didn't look at anyone, just headed straight to her office. The execs followed, their expressions unreadable. Whispers exploded across the office. Something big had happened. I caught a colleague's eye and she mouthed, "Tom." My pulse raced. Was it true? Had he shown up? I wanted to run to the boardroom, demand answers, but I stayed put. Karen's door stayed shut, blinds drawn. The office felt like it was holding its breath again. I overheard someone say, "Shareholder vote." My mind spun. Tom wasn't just an employee, he had real power. I wondered how Karen was processing this. Was she panicking yet? An email pinged my inbox, sent to the entire staff. It was from the board, announcing a restructuring. My eyes scanned the words, looking for Tom's name. It wasn't there, but the tone was formal, almost cautious. They mentioned key stakeholders and strategic shifts. I knew it had to be him. Karen hadn't come out of her office, which was unusual. She loved parading her authority, but now she was hiding. I felt a thrill. Tom had turned the tables. I imagined him sitting in that meeting, calm as ever, dropping the bombshell. Did he own enough shares to sway the board? The rumor was starting to feel real. I wanted to cheer, but I kept my face neutral. The office was a powder keg now. By late afternoon, another email arrived, this time from HR. It was vague, mentioning leadership transitions. My heart leapt. Were they ousting Karen? I glanced at her office. The blinds were still down. Colleagues were whispering about Tom's shares again, louder now. Someone said he'd inherited them from a relative years ago. It made sense. He'd been here forever, quietly amassing influence. I felt a mix of awe and disbelief. How had he kept it secret? Karen's arrogance had blinded her to his power. I wondered if she'd tried to apologize yet. Probably not. She was too proud. The office buzzed with energy, everyone piecing it together. Tom had played the long game, and it was paying off. I left work that day buzzing with adrenaline. The office felt like a different place, charged with possibility. I kept thinking about Tom's calm exit, his knowing nod. He'd known this was coming, hadn't he? I checked my phone for updates, but nothing new surfaced. Social media was quiet, no leaks from the board. I wondered where Tom was now, celebrating or just lying low. Karen's silence was telling. She wasn't one to stay quiet unless shaken. I imagined her replaying yesterday, realizing her mistake. Firing Tom wasn't just a bad call. It might have been her downfall. I couldn't wait to see what happened next. The corporate world had just gotten a lesson in humility, and I was here for it. The next day, Karen was absent, which sent rumors into overdrive. An intern claimed she'd seen her cleaning out her office last night. I didn't believe it. Karen wouldn't go quietly. But the office was different, lighter somehow. A new email announced an emergency board update tomorrow. My gut told me Tom was behind it. I pictured him in a suit, addressing the board, revealing his shares. How much did he own? Enough to shift power, clearly. Colleagues were bolder now, openly discussing his stake. Someone said he'd been a silent partner for years. I felt a surge of respect for him. He'd played it smart, never flaunting his influence. Karen's mistake was underestimating him, and it was catching up to her. I spent my lunch break digging online, looking for clues about Tom's shares. I found an old article about our company's founding, mentioning private investors. No names, but the timeline fit Tom's tenure. He'd been here since the start, a loyal cog in the machine. Or so we thought. Now I saw him differently, a strategist, not just a worker. Karen had seen him as expendable, a nobody. What a mistake. I wondered if she'd known about the shares. Would she have acted differently? Probably not. Her ego was too big. The office was alive with speculation, everyone waiting for the next shoe to drop. I felt like I was in a corporate thriller, and Tom was the mastermind. The board update came the next day, and it was a bombshell. Tom was named interim CEO, effective immediately. Gasps echoed through the office. Karen was stepping back, for personal reasons. I couldn't believe it. Tom had flipped the script. The email praised his long-standing commitment and strategic vision. No mention of shares, but we all knew. I pictured Karen reading that email, her world crumbling. Tom, the man she'd fired, was now her boss. The irony was delicious. Colleagues were ecstatic, some even clapping. I felt a grin spread across my face. Tom had played the game and won. I wondered if he'd address us soon, or stay silent as always. By midday, Tom arrived, looking the same, calm, unassuming. He didn't strut or gloat, just nodded to us and went to the boardroom. The office was electric, everyone whispering about his rise. I overheard someone say he owned 20% of the company. True or not, it was enough to shift power. Karen's absence felt permanent now, her office still dark. I wondered what Tom would do as CEO. Would he change things, or keep the status quo? His loyalty to the company was clear, but now he had real control. I felt a strange pride, like I'd witnessed justice. Karen's arrogance had cost her everything, and Tom's patience had paid off. That evening, I reflected on the week's events. Tom's rise was a masterclass in strategy. He'd stayed loyal, worked hard, and never revealed his hand. Karen's downfall was her own doing, her blindness to his value. I wondered what she was doing now, if she regretted her words. The office felt hopeful, like a new chapter was starting. Tom's leadership would be different, I was sure. He'd seen the company from the ground up, unlike Karen. I checked my phone, seeing colleagues post about the shakeup. No one mentioned Karen, like she'd been erased. Tom was the story now, the underdog who'd won. I couldn't wait to see what he'd do next. The next week, Tom addressed the staff in a brief meeting. His voice was steady, no trace of arrogance. He thanked us for our work, promising transparency and fairness. It was a stark contrast to Karen's reign. I felt a surge of optimism. He was one of us after all. He didn't mention shares or Karen, keeping it professional. But the subtext was clear. Things were changing. Colleagues were energized, already pitching ideas. I wondered how much power Tom really had. Did his shares give him full control, or was he a figurehead? The board's quick move suggested he was no puppet. I glanced at Karen's empty office, a relic of her downfall. Tom's rise felt like justice, pure and simple. Rumors swirled about Karen's exit. Some said she'd been forced out, others that she'd quit in shame. I didn't care. She was gone, and that was enough. Tom's leadership was already different. He walked the floor, talking to employees, listening. Karen had never done that. I remembered her firing Tom, her smugness blinding her. Now, he sat in her chair, running the show. I wondered if he'd planned this all along, or if Karen's mistake had forced his hand. Either way, he'd outplayed her. The office was buzzing with new energy, projects moving faster. Tom's calm presence was contagious, steadying us all. I felt proud to be part of this shift. I dug deeper into Tom's shares, curious about his influence. A colleague shared an old document listing early investors. Tom's name wasn't there, but a trust was, and whispers tied it to him. He'd been a silent giant, hiding in plain sight. Karen's firing had been a gamble, and she'd lost big. I wondered if Tom had warned her, or if he'd let her dig her own grave. His silence during that meeting now felt like a power move. The office was thriving under him, morale higher than ever. I saw colleagues smiling, collaborating, unafraid. Karen's reign of fear was over. Tom's victory was ours too, in a way. By the end of the month, Tom's changes were visible. He streamlined processes, cut pointless meetings, and rewarded hard work. Unlike Karen, he saw people, not just numbers. I thought back to that day she fired him, her words echoing, replaceable. How wrong she'd been. Tom's shares had given him leverage, but his character won the board. I wondered if he'd always known he'd rise, or if he'd just seized the moment. Either way, it was brilliant. The office felt like a team again, not a battlefield. I caught Tom's eye one day, and he nodded, same as always. But now, I saw the strategist behind the calm. Karen's name faded from conversations, like she'd never existed. Tom never mentioned her, keeping his focus forward. I admired his restraint. He could have gloated, but didn't. His shares were still a mystery, their extent unclear. Some said 30%, others more. It didn't matter. He'd earned his place. I thought about loyalty, how Tom embodied it, while Karen weaponized it. Her downfall was a lesson. Never underestimate the quiet ones. I felt inspired, like I'd witnessed a corporate fable. Tom's story was one of patience, cunning, and justice. The office was better for it, and so were we. I wondered what he'd do next, now that he held the reins. One day, I overheard a board member praising Tom's vision. He'd proposed a new direction, leveraging his deep knowledge. It was clear his shares weren't just power, they were trust in his judgment. Karen had seen him as a cog, not a partner. Her mistake was now legend in the office. I felt a strange gratitude for Tom, for showing us what loyalty could do. He'd turned a firing into a triumph, all without raising his voice. I wondered if Karen knew yet, if she was watching from afar. The thought made me smile. Tom's rise was proof that sometimes, the underdog wins. And it felt so good to see it. The company's stock rose, reflecting Tom's impact. Clients noticed the shift, praising our renewed focus. I thought about Karen's last day, her smugness shattered. She'd never seen Tom as a threat, and that was her undoing. His shares were his secret weapon, but his work ethic was his real strength. I felt a pang of curiosity. Had he always planned to reveal them? Or had Karen's firing forced his hand? Either way, he'd played it perfectly. The office was a different place now, vibrant and fair. I saw colleagues taking risks, sharing ideas, unafraid. Tom's leadership was quiet but transformative. I was proud to be here, witnessing it. Months later, I heard Karen had taken a lower role at a rival firm. The news barely registered. Tom's era was our focus. He never spoke of his shares, letting his actions speak. I admired that humility. It set him apart. The office had become a place of growth, not fear. I thought about that day, Karen's cruel words, Tom's calm exit. It was a turning point, a story we'd tell for years. His victory wasn't just personal, it lifted us all. I wondered if he knew how much he'd inspired us. Probably not. He was too humble. But his legacy was clear. Loyalty and patience could topple giants. Looking back, I realized Tom's story was a lesson in power. Not the loud, flashy kind, but the quiet, enduring type. Karen's arrogance had blinded her, while Tom's silence empowered him. His shares were a secret, but his character was the real weapon. I felt lucky to have seen it unfold, to witness justice in action. The office was thriving, and so were we. Tom's leadership wasn't about ego, it was about purpose. I thought about Karen, wondering if she'd learned anything. Probably not, but it didn't matter. Tom had shown us what was possible, and that was enough. His story was one for the ages. As I sit at my desk now, the office humming with purpose, I'm grateful for Tom. He turned a corporate betrayal into a triumph, all while staying true to himself. His shares were a surprise, but his character was the real shock. Karen's downfall was her own doing, a cautionary tale. I'll never forget that day, her smugness, his calm. It's a story of loyalty, strategy, and sweet justice. I hope you enjoyed this tale as much as I did living it. If you loved this story, please subscribe to our channel for more. Your support keeps these narratives alive, and we've got plenty more to share. Stay tuned for the next chapter.